Welcome to the WP Builds podcast, bringing you the latest news from the WordPress community. Now, welcome your hosts, David Wormsley and Nathan Wrigley.
Hello there and welcome to the WP Builds podcast. This is episode 141, entitled Feeling Insecure About Security, Part 2. It was published on Thursday the 15th of August 2019. My name's Nathan Wrigley from pictureandword.co.uk, a small web development agency based in the north of England, and I will be joined a little bit later by David Wormsley from davidwormsley.com so that we can have our regular discussion. We tend to sort of cycle 1 week an interview with a WordPress developer or something like that, and then a discussion with David and I, but this is the second one in a row because it's all about the same subject. A few things before I begin. If you wouldn't mind heading over to the wpbuilds.com website, and there you'll find a menu at the top. And the first link on that is the subscribe link, wpbuilds.com/subscribe. Get yourself onto our newsletter. We've got two of them, one to tell you about the podcast and the WordPress weekly news that we put out on a Monday. And the other one is to subscribe to an email which will tell you about any deals that we come across as soon as we hear about them. On that page, you'll also be able to subscribe on your favourite podcast player. Join our Facebook group of over 2,100 WordPressers, and you can find our content over on YouTube. And we'll also update you on Slack and Facebook Messenger should you so wish. Another page I'd like to mention is the deals page. That's over at wpbuilds.com/deals. And there you're going to find heaps of money off notable WordPress plugins and themes, etc. It's a bit like Black Friday, but every day of the week. So if you're in the market for some new product around the WordPress space, maybe go and check that page out and familiarize yourself with what's available. And the last one that I'm going to mention this week is wpbuilds.com/advertise. If you would like to have your product or service mentioned on WP Builds, we'd be happy to do that for you and get your service in front of a wider audience. And somebody that's done that is David Von Gries from the Page Builder Framework. Do you use a page builder to create your websites? The Page Builder Framework is a mobile, responsive and lightning-fast WordPress theme that works with Beaver Builder, Elementor, Breezy and other page builders. With its endless customization options in the WordPress customizer, it's the perfect fit for you or your agency. Go to wp-pagebuilderframework.com today. And we thank David for his continued support of the WP Builds podcast. Okay, last week we did episode number 140, which was all about feeling insecure about security. And this week we've got the follow-up because the episode was simply too long, so we kind of chopped it in two. And now we've got some different content following on from last week. So it might be a good idea to go back and listen to last week's if you didn't. This week we talk about the plugins and services which we actually use. We discuss them in some detail where we're able to. We also talk about how we implement security in our own business. And it's just a jolly nice discussion, finishing off our WordPress double weeker. So I hope you enjoy it and I hope you get something out of it. As always, leave some comments or head over to the WP Builds Facebook group to keep the conversation going.
So discussing feeling insecure about security, part 2. God, it doesn't feel like a week has gone past, does it, Nathan?
No, it feels like about 6 minutes maximum, but how strange.
Yeah, so shall we just recap on what we talked about? So
yeah.
we looked at the kind of areas of security. So we talked a little bit about the non-WordPress security things, what kind of data that we keep and how we pass around passwords and that kind of stuff. Then we moved on to what we might set up or think about when we don't manage a client's sites. And then we moved on to a little bit about what we were doing with our care plans and what we were promising. But we still had lots to talk about, which is what we're going to do now, which is really, well, we were just talking about changing the way that we kind of advertise our services and also maybe some of our methodology. Okay. But there's more to talk about, isn't there? All the services we can talk about.
Should we do that first? Because that seems like a nice place to jump back into this from last week. So kick us off.
Well, I started listing out some of the plugins because some of them I have a lot of experience with and some I don't know at all. See, I already mentioned last week that I'm a big fan of WordFence, but wanted to try and swap it out. So I've ended up Shall I talk about why I quite like WordFence?
Yeah, that would be a nice place to begin, because it's the first one on our list for no good reason. It's made the number one spot on our list.
Yeah, just because I use it. But it's one that I've been trying to get rid of because it's quite heavy. So the negatives first. It is quite confusing. They changed it actually quite recently. So you wouldn't really want to hand it over to a client, I don't think, to try and tick all the boxes, because there's an awful lot to work through, and I don't think I know it all. And it leaves a lot of stuff in the database, although you can have that removed. But what it really does well, and why I think it's so essential to me, is that it's got such a brilliant scanner. And you can set it, if you think things have been hacked, it will literally go through just all of the files and all of the spaces and things, search out things that shouldn't be in your folders and tell you about it. It gives you a ton of false positives, though, when you put it in that mode. So any spam comment that's got a dodgy URL that's been saved there will be flagged up as, suspicious. So you do need to have your wits about it. But for cleaning up, it is absolutely fabulous. And for reporting,
was it good? Was it quite easy to sort of get your eye in with all those false positives? You could kind of quickly go through the output and figure, okay, ignore that. Yeah, it lists them, and you can open up the file and it puts in red what it thinks is suspicious in most cases. So, it's pretty easy to see what is and isn't. And then, of course, you could just go back to, say, the original plugin, if it's a plugin, and check whether it matches up. But there isn't any easy way to do that. There isn't a simple compare like with like system for that. But I've only ever been a free user of it. So, for the work that I do and for what clients will pay, I could not afford their pro services. But, a big call out to them, because even though it is the most popular, isn't it? It's one of the most popular WordPress plugins. I think they are probably one of the most ones, if not the most popular one. Yeah, certainly gets a lot of attention, largely because they have a sort of fabulous range of ways of keeping in touch with you. They've got a great video blog, and they produce lots of blog posts, and also they email you on a daily basis to let you know what's happened recently, and whether or not that's a good thing. I don't know if you become a bit immune to what those emails tell you, but nevertheless they do that. So they're very good with their PR, I would say.
Yeah, it's tricky when we get into plugins and that, because they don't really want to promote one over the other, because I'm sure they're all good for the right person.
That's right.
I came to the conclusion that despite some of the negatives on WordFence, particularly how resource heavy it is, I still use it, because for a free service it's fabulous for when I've had those issues, and I certainly have had to clean up sites, and it's been a really good tool compared to other plugins for cleaning.
I've got quite a few sites on the, I can't remember whether it's called Premium or Pro or whatever, but the paid version, so we say. I managed to secure a whole bunch of sites many years ago when it was considerably cheaper than it is now, and they honour that pricing going forwards. And I use that because of the firewall. I think that's the primary reason to do it. The firewall is updated differently for the free one than it is for the paid one, and I believe that the firewall rules that go into free come about 30 days after they go into the premium version, and I think there is some benefit in that, without a doubt. That if the firewall rule is if there's a rule of some new vulnerability that's been discovered, and that rule is added immediately for Pro, and you get hacked and you're on the free version, and it that it could have been stopped. I think that's a difficult proposition for WordFence. It's a difficult stance to take, but obviously they need to provide something to justify that extra cost in order to make the plugin profitable. It's a difficult one to judge what should go in free and what shouldn't, and I know that a lot of people find that a difficult pill to swallow. But it's business, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love to have the pro version of everything, and it's kind of forbidden for me on terms of cost. But if it wasn't, and I had the right client, I'd be buying it. It's as simple as that, because the free version has proved itself to me over so many years. But so anyway, that's a big plug for them. But another really popular one is obviously the iTheme security, which they bought, didn't they? Used to be something else, Better Security or something
Yeah, I've
before
forgotten
that.
what it's called, but obviously now there's a few changes of hands here because it was bought by iThemes, and then obviously Liquid Web is it that bought
Yes.
iThemes? So now they're the custodians, and I don't know whether the developers are still the same guys, but nevertheless, it's gone through some change over the last year or so. But it has been very popular. They offered some very competitive pricing at various times. You know, iThemes is famous for having 40% off sales almost
Yeah.
on a weekly basis. And I've got it installed on plenty of sites. What I think it does really well is lots of ways of preventing things from happening. So, like you said earlier, they have the capability of enforcing passwords. They have the password length. They have the capability of putting capture forms on. They have the capability of blocking IP addresses. And it doesn't feel to me like it slows things down all that much. I can't really speak as to how heavy or light it is, but it certainly doesn't feel like it's slowing anything down.
Yeah, well, I did a test on it recently, and it's a lot less than WordFence. And interestingly enough, as soon as you put the Pro plugin on, because they are separate, it's a little bit more weight, but it's still much less than, say, WordFence.
Yeah.
But I think I used to, for a little while, I ran both WordFence and iThemes together, and on sites, which is really over the top because there was so much. You really needed to go through all the different options and make sure you just wasn't, doubling up on so many of them.
Yes,
but you're right.
Good
You're
point.
right. It's preventative, but it's got one thing that's missing for me, and I'm only reminded of it just recently, and that it uses Securi's malware scanner to check things. And on this last hack that I've had, it's been a clever hack that's hidden itself away from Security so it doesn't spot it.
Okay.
So I think in that case probably would have picked up on this recent hack.
Okay. I think it is very popular. I mean, both WordFence and iThemes have sort of customizable on-offable components. You know, they've got their dashboard and you can go in and turn things on. So like you said, if for some reason you've decided to deploy all of these plugins that we're mentioning all at the same time, then certainly in the case of WordFence and iThemes, you can go in and make sure that you're not asking for two captures on the login form, so you can switch things off so that there's no compatibility problems.
Yeah. I mean, what would have been interesting to know if the hack that I've just been trying to clear recently would have actually happened if iThemes would have been on in the first place. So you never know, do you, really, with these? Because they're concentrating on different aspects and they're stronger on certain things.
How deep does the iThemes Security malware scan go? Does it just taking the homepage, or is it going a little bit deeper? What is it doing? Because obviously it's an external service. How far is it penetrating into WordPress itself? Do you know?
I have no idea at all. I just know that I don't think I covered this actually in the part one of our chat, but I've just been dealing with a hack which really seems quite sophisticated. No one knew it was there. It was redirecting new visitors to a site to some gambling sites instead. Clearly, they were making some money out of these redirections, but it was clever enough to be able to log the IPs of people who had been to the site before, so they wouldn't get served it again while they remained on the same IP. So it remained hidden from the owners of the site and me. I just found it by accident because I move around and change IP a lot. And
how did that work then? Presumably there must have been a period of time where it was sitting benignly sucking up IP addresses, because if it had deployed that strategy as soon as it infected the site, then every IP address would have been new and it would have redirected them to the whatever it was, casino website or whatever. So presumably it sat there for a week or two and started to log. Okay, this person logs in. Okay, let's or was it people who were accessing a particular URL like WP -admin or something? It was allowing those people in and logging their IP address.
Yes, I'm not sure, actually.
Interesting.
That's a very good point. Yes, whether it's just got the people who's logged in. But I mean, it was really hard to. Well, you tested this one, didn't you?
Yeah.
I discovered it last time we were chatting, and it went to gambling for you, but
Yes.
then wouldn't do it. It wouldn't do it the second time you tried it.
No, the second time it went to the correct site, and then it kept going to the correct site. So bizarre. I mean, I wonder if they were hoping that. I wonder if that. Anyway, we're sort of losing track of it a little bit, but I wonder if they were just literally doing it once so that you assumed that you typed something incorrectly into Google, and then when you went back and tried for a second time, they were saying, "Okay, through you come. We've had our one shot at converting you to our casino, and from now on, we'll give you the site back again."
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure the people who put the hack in place are just getting paid for that referral.
Yeah.
So that's all they're worried about. But interestingly, the Securities Manual scanner, which is pretty good, didn't pick up on that. So I'm assuming that they also know the range of IPs that it scans on.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
The site certainly didn't get blacklisted, and as best as we can tell, it probably has been like that for a year.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Absolutely amazing. Oh dear.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. So we got all-in-one security, which I haven't used myself. It was actually used on this particular site I was talking about. It seems to set up things really easy. It's got all this sort of beginner, intermediate, and pro levels where you can set things up.
Yes, I confess I've got no experience whatsoever with this plugin, so you're on your own here.
Yeah, well, there's not much I can say apart from the fact it was used on this site and it didn't pick up on the issue. But of course, it was installed and obviously everything was set for beginners. So, it's not really necessarily a reflection on the plugin. Yeah, it's quite a very popular one, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
but,
I think it has got a reputation because it's been around for ages and it's got lots and lots and lots of installs.
And probably no way of making any money from it, I think, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So we're going through a bit of a list now, aren't we? Another one I do use, which is Malcare.
Okay.
And that's due to our friends AppSumo, and they did a great deal on that one, which I thought I'd get a few of those. And it's been an interesting one for me. Have you used it?
No, not really, to be honest. I do know Akshat. I met him at WordCamp in Europe a few weeks ago, but popular, widely used, and I know you've used it and have sort of favourable things to say about it.
Yeah, well, initially when I used it, I got a hack, and I thought, I'm not so sure about this because I left it with just Malcare on. But to be fair, these were sites that I'd inherited who had problems before, so I wonder if it was something left over. But recently, I've started using it also with WordFence on sites where I want the scan to go more regularly, because actually I don't think it's well advertised, but there is a free version of Malcare which will do a daily scan for you, and it's not using up any of your server resources to do that.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's a steal really, just to have that. And if you combine that with, say, something like WordFence, where you just leave that to do it every 3 days or something, then you can save on some of your resources on your server by using Malcare.
I think what you said a moment ago brings up an interesting conundrum, and that was, you didn't know whether it was something that bypassed Malcare or if it was something that was inheriting the site from the beginning. And I think with all of these solutions, no matter how good they are, it's very difficult to get a feeling of what they've succeeded in doing. So we've got this nice list, and these are the ones that we've heard of before. But we're probably a little bit in the dark as to what it is that they've succeeded in doing, what they've prevented. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think WordFence's strategy of emailing you every day with a little roundup of how many blocks it's done, I think that keeps them front of mind and makes you at least feel, it's doing something, it's justifying its existence.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, one other reason for WordFence for me is that I can actually take the data and put it into my tool for managing the sites, which is main WP. So I can actually produce some of their information the client report, so they get to feel that something has happened all the time.
Yeah.
But Malcare's selling point, I guess, is the fact that it tries to avoid those false positives, so it doesn't disturb you with stuff that isn't important, and it just lets you know about what it is. I think their biggest selling point, though, if you're on the pro version, and why I think it's great, although I've not used this, is they promise a one-click solution, which seems a bit incredible that you could clear things up in one click. And in fact, it doesn't. I've tried it a few times and it has failed. But what comes up straight away is that the invite to let them look at and sort it out manually. So you've got them on your side should you need it. And I think that's invaluable.
So if you click that button in an attempt to fix things up and it doesn't, to your mind, succeed, you can then reach out to humans who will take over that responsibility. That is nice.
Yeah, exactly. All you need to do, I mean, to clear it up, you need to put in your FTP details anyway. So when it fails, it tells where it kind of fails, some indication, but then instantly it says, give us your FTP details and we'll go and do it. And I think that's the promise with their service. So, yeah, an interesting one. I've yet to use it in that way, but it's interesting to know that there's a free version, which isn't talked about too much as well, if you're worried about resources. But similar to this is WebArc as well, who you've also had on the show.
Yeah, WebArc. So we had Oliver Sild on and met him again at WordCamp in Europe, and very active, very very young guy, and obviously very keen in this area. He organised off his own bat. He organised a little security evening where the topics of the day were discovered, and he went on stage and talked about internet security. So serious individual. They gained popularity suddenly because of a deal that they did on AppSumo. And it's a firewall, isn't it? It's not using up your server resources. You connect your website to it, and it tries to prevent the bad guys getting access.
Yeah, exactly, and it does all the scanning as well, doesn't it? So, it's a very similar setup. I mean, I don't know how good it is. I mean, I really regret not getting the AppSumo deal for myself on this one, because they definitely have attracted a ton of fans, and and completely can see that they take it seriously.
Yeah. Well, I can just speak for the person, Oliver. Yeah, definitely very very energizing and interested and vibrant in this space. So I think this is one to look out for. It's a funny subject that we're discussing here, isn't it? Because I definitely don't want to promote one over the other, but equally I don't want to give anybody the false thought that if you just install one of these things, you're done. You can just sort of walk away and everything will be fine, because that's clearly not what's happening. We're just letting you know about the ones that we've heard about, really.
Yeah, the ones we use for our own experience. I mean, it's a journey, isn't it? So, yeah, I know exactly. I mean, now we're only coming to ones that are kind of heard of, really, but not used for me. Bulletproof security, again, very popular. It's got a ton of options. It looks really complex to use, but if you need that kind of level of control, then it seems to have it. And it has a good scanner by the sounds of it. And SecuriPress, they're relatively new. That's from the same company, or were from the same company that created WP Rocket. So yeah, I've
is it SecuriPress or SecuPress?
I think it's SecuriPress.
Yeah, they're not related to Securi, I don't think, are they?
Oh, sorry, that's my bad.
No, it's okay.
It's SecuriPress. Yeah. So really, I mean, I installed that and I put it on a few of my test sites, but really, I didn't come to any conclusion. I think it's, the one thing about it is it's really pretty if you don't mind the fact that it changes the look of WordPress. So it's a bit like WP Rocket.
Yes.
It puts its own style in there, and it's made for humans. It's made to be friendly, unlike something like Bulletproof Security or WordFence. They're not that kind of user friendly. But so I don't know. And
no, I've no experience with them whatsoever.
Securi, they've got their own plugin for their for their same scanner. I'm assuming it works in the same way. It still accesses their external scanner.
Yeah, I'm not really sure, but I do know that they one of their biggest things is like the human interaction. Should things go wrong, they'll actually get their hands dirty and go and fix things for you.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, I guess that plugin is a lead into their service, isn't it? And that's really what they're selling. They go and fix stuff for you.
I know people who have divested the responsibility for hack sites to them, and I've heard no bad stories. They've come back, everything's been fixed, they've paid the bill to Securi and moved on, and everything was fine henceforth. My assumption is that they really, really, really know how to look at this stuff and have a deep understanding of what needs fixing up and have all the tools and support staff to do it.
Yeah, exactly. They've been around as long as I can remember, and they're the same. I've never heard anybody say anything bad about the services. Yeah, and finally, did you used to use Defender, didn't you?
I have put Defender on a couple of sites. I'm just always intrigued by what these guys are doing, WPMU Dev, because I think they're kind of turning a corner and becoming a company that people can trust again. And their security solution, one of the 8 or 9 ones that they're still developing going forwards, is Defender, and it's just about hardening. And I think it really does a very similar job to iThemes. You can change the capability for people to have certain passwords. You can block certain IP addresses. It'll give you an email report, but not a very detailed email report on the lines of WordFence. And I think it's pretty good. The notion of these things is to make it as painless as possible, but there's no hint of them cleaning up as far as I know, although if you have a subscription, I don't know if your WPMU Dev subscription runs as far as that, them fixing a site. I know that they fix problems with your site, but I don't know if it extends to fixing hacks and so on and cleaning your files up. I'm just not sure.
Yeah. No, I really don't know about that. So we're just showing our ignorance here, aren't we?
But I think the important thing here is that we're just mentioning ones that we've heard of, and if you've never heard of some of these, it might be a good idea to go and explore them. We'll certainly link to them all in the notes below the podcast episode.
There's a couple more that I actually put a note down, but they're not under this section, which is I got a nod really to Paul Lacey on this because he reminded me of them. There are a couple of Jeff Starr lightweight plugins, one called Black Hole for black bots, and the other one is BBQ Pro, which is block bad queries. And these are really kind of, I love these kind of plugins where people find a really simple, lightweight script that will just stop the majority of problems. There was one talked about recently with comment spam. There's a script that David Walsh, created, which just we talked about this, I think, before.
We did.
Where essentially it just kind of blocks a certain type of JavaScript from happening, so it sort of kicks people out in the most lightweight way. And I think this is the same with Jeff Starr's plugins, and I've been putting them on all of my sites because they literally take up no resources at all. But it's going to prevent somebody kind of putting on something with the queries where it's kind of jam packed with just bad stuff, in a sort of simple way, a lightweight way. So, but the problem is,
it just scans for kind of gibberish or non-English, does it? Is that what's going on? And then just sticks them to dev null or something?
Yes, it stops those kind of queries being activated, and I think it does that. Although, having said that, you probably would, again, need to check these against some of the solutions mentioned, because I have noticed, I think, in some of these security plugins, there's an overlap, so they may have their own version of, I think, what Jeff came up with in the first place.
Interesting. I've not played with either of those, so that's good. Nice recommendations. I will make sure to link to those in the show notes, and people can go and find those.
Black Hole for bad bots, I mean, it's more about protecting your server from crashing, because if somebody's sending a load of traffic, ignoring the kind of rules on this, it blocks them off. And there's a little bit more complex with this one, because you do need to add something to your .ht access file. But I've been watching it, and I certainly get plenty of bad bots on my site, so it's certainly saving some of my resources for that plugin working, but maybe it's not as much security.
Okay. Right. Let's talk about. Let's go back to the top of this section. How we have rationalised for our business. What is it that we're doing? We talked a little bit last time about some of the things that I do, backing up and so on. But should we dig into this and talk about what have you included as part of your business?
Yeah, so I've had to review this over the time. So now pretty much everyone's going to come in on my care plan. So that solves things. I think just this discussion for me has solved the fact that I'm going to kick off with giving everybody an editor role. And that's going to cut out a whole bunch of issues.
Yep.
And so I've prioritized it too. I think probably I said it already before, was the fact that I've put a priority on good scanning on a regular basis, so that I know, I hope I'm going to know as soon as there is an issue, meaning that my backups will be able to come into play without there being any changes. That's basically how I'm going to deal with it.
When you say a regular scan, how often do you do that? Are you doing like a daily thing or a twice weekly?
Yeah, so I'm letting on. Well, I think it defaults naturally with WordFence to every 3 days. I think you can change this, but I haven't, and I've stuck in where I think it might be more urgent, malcare to cover dailies.
Oh, I see. So, right, yeah, you were talking about that. So the malcare goes in on the days where WordFence doesn't. Interesting.
Yeah, so you've got 2 scans going on one day.
Right.
It's maybe a little bit over the top, you see, but I certainly think I'm going to have to, in terms of rationalising it, I'm going to have to start thinking a little bit more about individual sites rather than this is my stack for all sites.
Yeah. Well, my protocol is very similar to yours. I do daily backups of absolutely everything. I don't do database backups. I figure if I'm going to do a backup, let's just do the whole thing. I then store that off-site, and I keep those basically forever. I don't delete them. They just grow and grow and grow. And scanning on a daily basis, I have put these hardening plugins in, whether it's iThemes or WordFence or WPMU Dev or whatever it might be, put some sort of hardening in to toughen the ability for people to use poor passwords and to keep trying logging in without getting their IP blocked. Generally, kind of block it for the default amount of time. So if somebody tries to log in unsuccessfully, I think it's like 3 minutes or something. And if somebody keeps accessing 404 pages or resources, then the default time I use again, it's 3 minutes or 4 minutes or whatever it might be. Sometimes I ramp that up just because I figure, actually, you know what, it's pretty clear after 10 attempts that you're up to no good. Why not just block you for like a week? But generally I leave the defaults. So yeah, backups, scanning, and that's kind of it really. That's mostly what I do.
Yeah, it's interesting because you don't see the point in any of the sort of just backing up of the database, and I do that. Yeah. So I've got daily database and I've got weekly. Well, that's not entirely true. If I think a site's going to get updated more, I will do fuller backups and make an exception to that. Yeah. But that's been my routine.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's anything in this because I haven't checked this out. But again, I did it on the basis of my fear of resources and also a little bit of cost.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. The the time it takes to produce that backup is you're adding minutes to it and you're adding CPUs. But I always put it at a stupid o'clock when the site is probably not doing anything anyway. So like 2:30 in the morning or something. Just to ensure that that's not really a problem. But you're right, and then of course the off-site storage of that it's not inconsequential. It adds up over time. I've got terabytes of these backups, but the way that my system is set up, I'm okay with that. I've got enough storage and I've got enough cloud storage to support all that. So I just manage it that way.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, partly there was costs in my mind as well, growing costs. I mean, I'm keeping now. I think it's 4 months I've set it for Amazon to save.
Yep.
So obviously I'm paying for that storage there, and it's still hardly anything.
Oh, it won't be. No, it's very cheap. Yeah.
Yeah, but it auto clears away. I mean, I'm assuming here that I will never need to go back more than 4 months to I'm hoping that we'd have found a hack before then. But of course, this recent hack that I had, but I wasn't
went on a
managing
year.
it.
Yeah.
We think so. Well, I think so only because of the fact that I just by accident went to their site to check it, and I went to this site and never thought anything of it. So it's only coming back to it so much later.
It would not surprise me if if a hacker was to write a script which would just sit there for a year doing nothing and then start to perpetrate its misery, just because of that of what you've just said, that most people don't keep backups for more than a handful of months. So it's just going to sit there waiting, wait for 6 months, wait for a year, then start doing your mischief, because in that way they'll be more effective. I don't know if that's true or not, but it strikes me that if I was a hacker, I'd certainly be thinking about doing that.
That's a really good point, actually. Oh my God!
It wouldn't take it wouldn't take long to write the code to say don't do anything for 365 days, would it? Let's be honest, it would. But I don't know if that's typical or not. What do you do about sort of keeping things up to date? I know that we're both main WP users. I go in every single day, whether that's the weekend, the week, whether I'm on holiday. Even if I'm on holiday, I still do this task. This is the only task related to work that I will do. I'll go in and just do the updates to make sure that part of the puzzle is at least being done proactively by me.
Yeah, same here. It's a daily routine, and sometimes twice a day, actually.
Okay.
But it's not done by me. It's done by my wife, who's very capable now. She knows. We were talking a little bit about this before, wasn't we? We approach it differently. So I go in and my wife goes in and checks what plugins are due to be updated.
Yep.
And if it all looks fine, because we trust pretty much everything we use, that she just goes and clicks the OK to all and it updates. But you do it site by site.
Well, I didn't realise that there was an option to do it in a different way. But yeah, basically I do it sort of site by site. I just go through, have a quick visual glance. What I tend to do is I'll start on one site. I'll just quickly click the button which shows me what is about to be updated. I'll just make sure that all of those numbers seem okay, and that the plugin itself I trust. I'll then click the update button, which, for a typical site might take 30 seconds to a minute. And I'm doing this at the beginning of the day when I'm actually sifting through my emails. So what I do is I have it on one screen, click update, then go back to my emails, then go back, click, scan the next one, go back. And the whole process takes about 10 minutes. And I'm doing other things at the same time. And in that way, I manage it really easily. The only drawback is trying to do anything like that on a mobile device. It can be quite tricky. So I limit it to desktop mostly, except, as I said, when I'm on holiday and I don't really like to get the laptop out. So I just try to do it on the mobile instead.
Yeah, this is exactly what we do. Yeah, it's there on the mobile when we go away. So
I have to say though, on a sort of daily basis, I get all of these iThemes and WordFence emails, and I have become basically immune to them in the same way that I can ignore ads in the Google search results. I now suffer from a complete disinterest in the emails that come through from the security plugins that I've installed. So I'm not sure if that's something I need to revisit. Maybe stop getting them sent on a daily basis and start to receive them on a need to know basis, which I'm sure they do. I'm not entirely sure if that's true, but in other words, we'll email you when something important happens, not we'll email you a summation of the stuff that's happened during the last 24 hours, which on the whole I don't need to know about.
Yeah, well, I think it's weekly that I have my WordFence emails come that just give me some kind of report, and I delete them on bulk now. So I really need to turn that off.
Yeah.
But there is one that I do absolutely like coming through, and that's the one that tells me who's logged in and where from.
Interesting. Yeah, the WordFence one tells you if an admin or whatever role has been logged in. That is quite good. I found that quite reassuring when I log in. And then I receive an email to say that, an admin user has logged in. That is quite nice, just because it makes me, I gain confidence. Okay, that's working, good, and it's, I'm happy with that. Because obviously I don't want a non-admin user to be logging in as an admin that I've never heard of.
Yeah, exactly. And it gives me the fun of freaking out clients once in a while because it does. Well, one of them logged in. It was only a few weeks ago, and I just sent them an email and just saying, "Are you in Canada by any way?"
Ah, right. Yeah, I haven't really looked at it that closely.
Yeah, because it was them logging in who I recognised, but it wasn't from a place I expected them to be logging in. You know?
Yeah, you can limit all that, can't you? You can limit the geographical location or the IP address from which logins can be accepted. Again, all this magical stuff that we never got a chance to talk about, but definitely is possible with those solutions.
Yeah, but it was just nice to be able to sort of, let them. Well, it may have freaked them out a little bit, the fact that I'm monitoring them logging in,
but the fact whilst they're on holiday.
But they know at least that if it was suspicious, which it was in their case, I'm onto it. So
that's good. Actually, that's good. That's worked in your favour. They suddenly feel that you're taking great care of them. I really like that. So, okay, shall we move on and talk about? Well, you've got this section called "Things Still to Solve and Unknowns."
Oh, we maybe just solved some of them. Yeah.
Good.
So. Well, there was just some things that I left really for our conversation, things that I hadn't decided on. So I talked about incremental backups. I still haven't thought about that. It's not been an issue yet. None of the sites I manage are that busy that a daily backup won't solve it.
Yeah, but we did mention even on an e-commerce site, potentially backing up every I don't know, every half an hour or at the completion of a cart process, backing up that process at that moment. Yeah. Yeah.
And there was just questions really about whether I thought it was worth treating sites differently. And I think actually I've come to the conclusion talking to you, I probably will, just having this conversation. Instead of just doing exactly the same every time I build a site, same plugin, same setup, I think I'm going to start to adjust according to the client I've got. But another interesting thing, which is security related, something I haven't solved, I know a lot of people are looking at, is whether it's worth converting some of our WordPress sites into HTML.
Yeah, that's a sort of big move at the moment. You've got services like HardyPress and GetShifter, and then there's things like WP2Static, the number 2, which are in a sense kind of obviating this security model entirely, because they create you've got a version of WordPress, and then upon saving some new content, it then scans the whole site, archives switches off the container where WordPress is, and dumps the HTML with all the links over onto a completely, well, for want of a better word, there's no PHP going on. It's just a flat HTML file, and in that way, you can't. There is no particular threat model to that. I mean, obviously on the server side there is, but not on the WordPress side. So that's fascinating.
Yeah, I haven't seen my solution to this yet. You mentioned one of the plugins, which was the one that converts.
WP2Static.
Yeah, that's the one I tried, and I had a big fail on it and just left it there. But I think it's... Yeah. Have you thought about doing this at all?
Well, to be honest with you, I haven't, because I just wonder if for a client, it's just another problem to overcome. You log in, you wait for a little bit, you have to wait for the site to be cached upon things saving and so on. And I just haven't, not because it's not a good idea, not because the services don't work, simply because I'm just used to the way that WordPress works traditionally. I haven't, as we'll probably discover in a minute or two, I haven't really suffered too much from the problems that other people have had. And so it's not something that I've explored. But, the speed benefits are unquestioned. The security benefits are unquestioned, or unquestionable, that they are obvious. But I haven't tried it.
Yeah. And there's one thing that I used to do, a couple of sites, but then I didn't do it consistently. And that was the ability to be able to sort of redirect your WP login to another URL of your choosing, which I know it's certainly in iThemes where you can add that very easy. I'm sure it's in some of the other ones. It's not in WordFence, but I've always wondered about this, because I know for sure it does work in stopping those attempts to try and log into your platform. So it
Yeah.
solves that.
Yeah, I don't think it's real security, is it? They call it security through obscurity, and it will, without a doubt, stop the automated bots that are searching for, WP-admin or login or whatever. But they're to say that those attempts are pretty unsophisticated is kind of stating the obvious, I suppose. They're just literally finding URLs appended with this thing and then trying a username and password attack. I don't know what they're going to do once they get in, but if it works, okay. I don't do it because, we've got the solution of too many login attempts in our other security plugins, so I just don't bother doing that.
Yeah, that's the conclusion I came to, and I tripped up as well because I just couldn't remember how to get into one of the sites when I did this because I forgot what we named it. So, so I stayed clear of it because I thought, well, again, my policy is generally to try and get people used to WordPress and their site. So I want to kind of keep things as they would be. But yeah, an interesting one. So I think I've decided I'm not going to do that.
No, I wouldn't bother. It's not something I can say I value too highly anyway. Goodness me! I mean, getting towards the end of this second episode, it still feels like we know nothing. The experts in the field will probably be chuckling away to themselves as we talk. There's so much that we don't know. This landscape is changing all the time. It feels to me sometimes like the hackers are winning. They're able to, completely shred hours and hours of humans' endeavor in the space of a few minutes. Often this stuff is done by robots that have got no interaction with human beings whatsoever. It's just bizarre, in the same way that, horrible crime is bizarre. It falls under the same category. I don't know why people choose to do this. Well, I'm increasingly becoming aware of why. There's money to be gained in it, and presumably some sort of kudos. But the fact of the matter is, it's here to stay. It's an opportunity to talk to your clients and to get them to understand that there are benefits. It's an opportunity, dare I say it, for you to upsell various aspects so that when the site is handed over, you've got care plan capabilities and you've got options for ongoing work, even for cleaning things up should the worst happen. But I just think it's an ongoing battle. There's no right answer. None of those plugins will protect you from everything. All of them will protect you from something. You've just got to find what works for you, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, I would really, really love to hear what people do talk to their clients about, because I think that's what we need to change a little bit, don't we?
Yeah.
How we communicate
I think
what
the
we offer.
communication of this, that's what's become obvious to me, is that I haven't communicated. Times have moved on, basically, and my procedures and my spiel hasn't. And I need to think about it, particularly as regarding backups in my case. I think I've learned from these conversations that I need to be more explicit about what I'm covering with the backups, and that I'm potentially not covering content that was created since the vulnerability happened, and that potentially, if they want things cleaning up, I might in the future be thinking more about giving that to a paid service and letting them handle it and not me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also, it's just how to communicate. I'm fascinated by how other people do it and how they cover it, but also when they cover it, because, in the journey of a client wanting a website, there are certain places when they're going to be more open to listening to this kind of stuff.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So please leave us some comments. Tell us what your thoughts are, what it is that you do. Where did we go wrong? What did we not mention? What did we simply state as truth, which was absolute nonsense? I'm sure there's plenty of that. And thanks for staying with us for 2 whole episodes. Well, there we go. We finally got to the end. 2 weeks on security. Obviously, we're not experts in this field, but I hope you can appreciate we're just taking it from our own standpoint. Perhaps you've got something that you disagree with. Perhaps you agree with some of what we said. Either way, join us in the comments or go to the WP Builds Facebook group and let us know what you thought about it. The WP Builds podcast was brought to you today by WP and Up. 1 in 4 of us will be directly affected by mental health related illness. WP and Up supports and promotes positive mental health within the WordPress community. This is achieved through mentorship, events, training and counselling. Please help enable WP and Up by visiting wpnop.org/give. Okay, as I always say at the end of these episodes, I hope you come back next week and listen to the podcast. They come out on a Thursday, or join us on Monday, very early in the morning UK time. I put out the WordPress Weekly News. It's about 20-30 minutes or so of a summation of last week's WordPress news. And then at 2 p.m. UK time, we do a Facebook Live. Me and 3 other people from the WordPress community go into our Facebook group and various other places, and we get a conversation going about the WordPress Weekly News. It's growing and it's very interesting, and I'd love it if you could come and you can comment in real time and enjoy the experience. Okay, so hopefully you'll join us for one of those. I'm going to fade in some cheesy music, and it really is pretty cheesy this week, and say bye-bye for now.